funeral happens on a Thursday in Itaewon, and Zola Baptiste stands beside a closed casket wondering if grief is supposed to feel this empty. 23 people attend, most of them strangers. Men in dark suits with harder eyes, women who look uncomfortable in their borrowed black dresses. Her husband David has been dead for 4 days, killed in a car bombing that left so little of him the casket stays sealed. And Zola, she's 29 years old and suddenly a widow. The word tastes wrong in her mouth. David was 31, mid-level in the Nam organization, managing protection rackets in Hongdae. Nothing major, he always said. 4 years of marriage, 4 years of him promising they'd get out soon, go legitimate, build something clean. She believed every word because that's what love does. It makes you stupid and trusting and blind. The pastor drones on about God's mercy and eternal rest. Zola doesn't hear any of it. She's watching the woman in expensive black who stands apart from everyone else, elegant and cold as winter. When the service ends, the woman approaches with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. "I'm Park Min-ha," she says, extending a manicured hand. "Nam Gi-taek's sister. I wanted to offer my condolences personally. Your husband was loyal to our organization." Zola doesn't take the offered hand. Was he? Something flickers in Minha's expression. "Of course. Which is why my brother wants you taken care of financially. A gesture of respect for David's service." "I don't want money," Zola says, and her voice sounds like someone else's, cold and sharp. "I want to know who killed him." "The Incheon crew," Minha answers smoothly. "Territorial dispute over the Hongdae collections. They've been handled appropriately." "That's a lie." The voice comes from behind Zola. Her brother Julian, who drove down from Busan for the funeral, steps forward with his jaw tight. "David called me 2 days before he died. Said he'd pissed off someone high up in the Nam organization. Said if anything happened to him, it came from the top, not some territorial bullshit." Minha's smile sharpens like a blade. "Your brother was mistaken. Paranoid, perhaps. The stress of the work. My brother doesn't eliminate loyal men over petty disputes." "Then what does he eliminate them over?" Zola asks quietly. Minha meets her eyes, and Zola sees something there. A warning, or maybe a challenge. "Betrayal," she says simply. "Theft, disloyalty, the things that matter." She adjusts her purse. "If you need anything, there's a number in the folder the funeral home will give you. Don't hesitate to call." She leaves in a cloud of expensive perfume and implied threats. Julian pulls Zola aside once they're alone. "You can't stay in Seoul." David was terrified those last few days. I could hear it in his voice. Whatever he did, whoever he angered, they might decide you're a loose end. But Zola isn't afraid. She's something else entirely, something cold and focused that settled into her bones the moment the police said the words car bomb and didn't suffer. "Let them come," she says. "I'm not running." At home that night, their apartment feels too big and too small at the same time. David's coffee cup is still in the sink from 4 mornings ago. His jacket hangs by the door. The bed smells like him, like the cologne he wore too much of and the cigarette smoke he thought she didn't notice. Zola goes through his things methodically. Clothes, books, the watch his father gave him. In the back of his closet, she finds a shoebox full of cash, maybe 2 million won in mixed bills. In his sock drawer, she finds receipts from restaurants she's never been to. A hotel in Gangnam, dated 1 week before his death. Evidence of a life she didn't know about. She sits on their bedroom floor, surrounded by the debris of her marriage, and makes a decision, a vow, a promise, written in the ashes of her grief. Nam Gi-taek killed her husband. She doesn't know why yet, doesn't know what David did, but every instinct she has screams that Minha was lying. The Incheon crew didn't do this. The order came from the top, from the man who controls everything from Gangnam to Itaewon, like a king on a throne of blood money. So Zola will destroy him. Not with violence. She's smarter than that, more patient. She'll seduce him, make him want her, maybe even love her, make him vulnerable in ways men like him never allow. And when he's defenseless, when he's given her access to his world and his secrets, she'll take everything. His empire, his reputation, his life. Revenge won't bring David back, but it will make this hollowness inside her feel like something other than failure. She picks up their wedding photo from the nightstand, looks at their younger faces smiling like they had forever. "I'll make him pay," she whispers to David's frozen smile. "I promise you that." The research takes 3 weeks. Zola learns everything about Nam Gi-taek that public records and careful questions can reveal. 38 years old, never married, no children on record. He controls an empire built on gambling, protection, real estate laundering, clubs where girls dance and men pay for the illusion of power. He's been arrested twice, never convicted. Walks through Seoul like the laws don't apply to him because functionally they don't. But he has patterns, routines, weaknesses. Every Friday night, he visits an upscale lounge in Cheongdam-dong called Eclipse. Always arrives at 10, always sits in the same corner booth, always alone. He doesn't drink much, doesn't socialize, just watches the room like a predator cataloging prey. Zola prepares like she's going to war. She loses 5 kilograms she didn't need to lose, buys dresses that cost more than her monthly rent, practices walking in heels high enough to be weapons. She's an interior designer, successful enough to belong in expensive places without raising suspicion, and she uses every one of her savings to look like she belongs in his world. On a Friday night, exactly 3 weeks after David's funeral, she walks into Eclipse like she owns it. The dress is midnight blue, cut to show the curve of her waist and the length of her legs without trying too hard. Her hair is swept up, exposing her neck. She's wearing the perfume David bought her for their last anniversary, the one that smells like jasmine and something darker. She doesn't look at the corner booth, doesn't acknowledge Nam Gi-taek's presence even though she can feel his eyes on her the moment she enters. She sits at the bar, orders whiskey neat, and waits. 17 minutes. That's how long it takes before a man approaches. "Mr. Nam would like to buy you a drink," he says, all formality and careful deference. Zola takes a sip of her whiskey, doesn't look at him. "Tell Mr. Nam I buy my own drinks." The man blinks, clearly unused to rejection. The lady says, he starts. I heard what she said. A new voice cuts across the space, deeper, commanding in a way that makes people straighten their spines. Zola turns and Nam Gi-taek is right there, closer than she expected, taller than his photos suggested. He's handsome in a dangerous way, sharp cheekbones and dark eyes that miss nothing, expensive perfectly to his frame. She says she doesn't need me to buy her drinks, he continues, looking directly at Zola. But maybe she'd let me join her anyway. Up close, he's even more striking, and there's intelligence in those eyes, the kind that makes her wonder if he can see through her performance to the rage underneath. That depends, Zola says, and she's grateful her voice stays steady despite her hammering heart. Are you interesting? The corner of his mouth lifts, not quite a smile. I've been called many things. Interesting is rarely one of them. Then prove me wrong. He sits beside her at the bar, waves away his man, signals the bartender for another round. They talk for 2 hours, and Zola has prepared for this, researched his interests, knows he collects contemporary art, and funds a scholarship program for at-risk youth that he never publicizes. But Gi-taek surprises her. He asks about her work with genuine curiosity, listens when she talks about design philosophy, makes her laugh with a dry observation about the lounge's terrible feng shui. He doesn't mention David, doesn't seem to recognize her at all. When she finally excuses herself, claiming an early morning meeting, he stands. Will I see you again? Maybe, she says, slinging her purse over her shoulder. If you're lucky. His smile is slow and dangerous. I don't believe in luck. I believe in getting what I want. And what do you want? She asks, even though she shouldn't engage, shouldn't give him anything. Right now? Your name. Zola, she says. Just Zola. Just Zola, he repeats, like he's tasting it. I'm Gi-taek, and I very much hope to see you again. She walks out without looking back, but she can feel his eyes on her all the way to the door. Now listen, if you're already hooked and you haven't hit that subscribe button, you're making a terrible life choice. This story gets so much darker, so much more twisted, and you're really going to risk the algorithm hiding it from you? Subscribe right now before you forget and spend the rest of your week trying to remember what this channel was called. Do it. I'll wait. Over the next month, they see each other 7 times. Coffee at an expensive place in Gangnam, where the baristas know his order. Dinner at a restaurant so exclusive it doesn't have a sign. A private gallery showing where Zola actually forgets to perform because the art is stunning, and Gi-taek watches her react to it with something soft in his expression. He courts her properly, old-fashioned almost, which she didn't expect from a crime lord. Opens doors, asks about her day, remembers small details she mentioned in passing. He's charming and attentive and treats her like she matters, like she's more than a conquest or a distraction. And the attraction, God. The attraction is a living thing between them. The way his hand lingers on her lower back when he guides her through a door. How his eyes track her movements when she crosses her legs. The tension that coils tighter every time they're in the same room, until Zola can barely breathe around it. On their 8th date, a charity gala, where she wears a dress that makes his jaw tighten when he sees her, something finally breaks. They end up at his penthouse afterward, ostensibly to see a piece of art he's considering buying. The view from his windows is breathtaking, all of Seoul spread out like scattered diamonds, but Zola can barely focus on it because Gi-taek is standing so close she can feel his heat. "You're not what I expected," he says quietly, and his voice has gone rough. "What did you expect?" she asks, turning to face him. "Someone simpler." He reaches up, traces his thumb along her jawline with devastating gentleness. "You're anything but simple, Zola." She should pull away, should remember why she's here, what she's doing, that this man killed her husband. Instead, she leans into his touch like a flower turning toward sunlight. "Maybe you don't know me at all," she whispers. "Maybe I want to," he says, and then he's kissing her. It's supposed to be strategy, part of the plan, something she's using to get close to him. But when his mouth claims hers, when his hands slide into her hair with possessive intent, when he pulls her against his body like he's been dying to touch her, Zola feels something she absolutely did not prepare for. Real desire, aching and undeniable and terrifying. She kisses him back with matching hunger, her hands fisting in his expensive shirt, and when he groans against her mouth, the sound goes straight through her. He backs her against the window, his body hard against hers, one hand sliding down her side to grip her hip. Then he stops, pulls back, breathing hard, rests his forehead against hers. "Not like this," he says roughly. Zola blinks through the haze of want. "What?" "I want you," he continues, and she can feel exactly how much against her hip. "But when we do this, I want you, sure, not caught up in the moment or the wine. I want you to choose it consciously. Choose me." It's unexpectedly respectful, unexpectedly decent for a man who supposedly kills without conscience. He calls her a car, kisses her thoroughly at the door, and sends her home aching and confused and frustrated beyond belief. Over the next 2 weeks, they see each other almost daily. Gi-taek pulls her into his world, introduces her to his business associates as someone important, takes her to meetings where she sits quietly and observes. He values her opinion on his legitimate ventures, the real estate developments he's using to launder money, asks her to design the interiors for a new luxury complex in Gangnam. And the physical tension builds to an unbearable degree. Stolen kisses in elevators that leave her breathless, his hand on her thigh during dinner, thumb stroking slow circles that make her lose track of conversation. The way he watches her mouth when she talks, like he's remembering exactly how it tastes. Then one night, after a particularly charged dinner where they barely touched their food because they were too busy devouring each other with their eyes, Zola makes a decision. At his penthouse, when he pours wine and tries to maintain that careful distance, she sets her glass down and walks to him with clear intent. She kisses him, slow and deep and deliberate, and when she pulls back she says, "I'm sure. I choose this. I choose you." His control shatters like glass. "Are you certain?" he asks, hands already sliding down her back. "Because once we start, I won't want to stop." "Then don't," she says. What follows is intense and consuming, and nothing like the clinical seduction she'd planned. Gi-taek undresses her, slowly, reverently, his mouth following the path of every piece of clothing that falls away. He lays her on his bed like she's something precious, kisses every inch of exposed skin until she's trembling and begging. When he finally enters her, she gasps his name, and he captures the sound with his mouth, swallows it down like he wants to keep it. They move together with desperate synchronicity, and when she comes apart in his arms, he follows her over, with her name on his lips like a prayer. Afterward, wrapped in his sheets with his arms around her, and his heartbeat steady against her back, Zola feels something crack open in her chest. This isn't supposed to be real. She's supposed to be using him, manipulating him, playing a role. But lying here feeling safe and cherished and satisfied in ways she never did with David, she knows the terrible truth. She's falling for him, maybe already fallen. "You're dangerous," he murmurs into her hair, fingers tracing lazy patterns on her hip. "Why?" she asks, even though she shouldn't encourage this intimacy. "Because you make me forget to be careful. Because you make me want things I told myself I couldn't have." "What things?" "This," he says simply, "you. Something real, in a world built on lies." The words should feel like victory, like her plan is working. Instead, they feel like knives, each one cutting deeper into the lie she's living. Over the following weeks, they fall into a rhythm that feels dangerously domestic. She stays over more nights than not. He keeps a drawer for her things. They make love with varying intensity, sometimes slow and tender, sometimes rough and claiming, him gripping her hips hard enough to bruise while he takes her from behind, her nails raking down his back when she rides him. But it's more than physical. He shares pieces of himself she knows he doesn't show anyone. His difficult childhood, raised by a father who taught him the business with fists and cruelty. His sister Minha's protective ruthlessness, how she's the only family he trusts. The loneliness of his position, always having to be the strongest, the coldest, never allowed to be vulnerable. Zola shares two carefully edited truths. Her Haitian mother who died when she was 12. Her Korean father who worked himself to death trying to give her opportunities. Growing up between cultures, never quite fitting anywhere. Her passion for design, the satisfaction of creating beauty in a world that often feels ugly. She doesn't mention David. He doesn't ask about her past relationships. But complications creep in like cracks in a foundation. Minha grows noticeably colder each time she sees Zola, makes pointed comments about convenient timing and women who appear out of nowhere. Sang-woo, Gi-taek's right-hand man, asks careful questions about her background, where she's from, how long she's lived in Seoul. And Julian calls, worried and frustrated. "Are you still planning this revenge thing, or have you lost your mind completely? You know what this man is, Zola. You know what he does." "I know," she says, and ends the call before he can hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Here's a question I want you to really think about. Would you continue a revenge plan if you realized you were falling in love with your target? Would you walk away or see it through? Drop your answer in the comments, because honestly, Zola is about to face this exact choice, and I'm curious what you would do. 3 months into whatever this is, Zola is getting ready for a business dinner at Gi-taek's penthouse when he comes up behind her at the mirror, slides his arms around her waist, kisses her neck. "You're beautiful," he says against her skin. "You're biased," she replies, but she's smiling. "Factual," he corrects. He meets her eyes in the mirror. "I need to tell you something." Her stomach tightens. What? I know you have secrets. We all do. But when you're ready to tell me yours, I'll listen. No judgment, no consequences, just truth. What makes you think I have secrets? She asks carefully. Because I recognize someone running from pain, he says. I've been running my whole life too. His arms tighten around her. Whatever you're hiding, Zola, it doesn't change this. It doesn't change how I feel about you. She should tell him right now. Should confess everything. Face the consequences. See if there's any way forward through honesty. But the words stick in her throat because she's terrified. Terrified he'll hate her. Terrified he'll kill her. Terrified that telling the truth means losing this, losing him, losing the first real happiness she's felt since before David died. So instead, she turns in his arms and kisses him, pours all her confusion and guilt and desperate hope into it, and he responds with matching intensity. They don't make it to dinner. They barely make it to the bed, leaving a trail of expensive clothes across his penthouse floor. Later, satisfied and drowsy, she watches him sleep and realizes the truth she's been avoiding. She's in love with Nam Gi-taek, completely, irrevocably, catastrophically in love with the man who killed her husband. And she has absolutely no idea what to do about it. The phone call comes at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Zola is tangled in Gi-taek's sheets when her cell buzzes insistently on the nightstand. She considers ignoring it, but Julian's name flashes on the screen, and her brother never calls this late unless something is catastrophically wrong. She slips out of bed carefully, grabs Gi-taek's shirt from the floor, and takes the call in his living room. Julien doesn't bother with pleasantries. I found something about David. You need to hear this now. Her stomach drops. What? He wasn't who you thought, Zola. Julien sounds pained, like the words are cutting his throat. I've been digging since the funeral, calling in favors, following money trails. David was stealing from the Nam organization. Not small amounts. 8 million won over 2 years. Maybe more. That's impossible, she whispers. But her voice sounds hollow even to herself. I have bank records. Offshore accounts in his name. Transfers he made weekly, sometimes daily, skimming from collections before reporting numbers up the chain. He was bleeding the organization dry and covering his tracks. At least he thought he was covering them. Zola sits down hard on Gi-taek's expensive couch. Why would he do that? Because he was planning to run, Julien continues. There's more. He was having an affair, Zola, one of the hostesses from the Hongdae clubs. They had an apartment together in Gangnam, lease in both their names. He bought her jewelry, expensive things. They were planning to disappear together with the stolen money. No, Zola says, but she's remembering the hotel receipt she found, the restaurant she'd never been to, the cash hidden in his closet. I'm sending you photos right now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The photos arrive in a cascade of evidence that destroys what's left of her marriage. David with a beautiful woman, intimate in ways that can't be explained away, kissing her on a street corner. His hand on her lower back the way he used to touch Zola. At a restaurant, at a hotel, in an apartment she's never seen. The metadata shows dates from the last 6 months of his life, right up until 2 weeks before the bombing. One photo shows them looking at plane tickets on a laptop screen. Another shows David handing the woman a jewelry box, her face lighting up with joy. Zola runs to Gi-taek's bathroom and vomits until there's nothing left. Everything she believed is a lie. David wasn't a victim. He was a thief and a cheater and a coward who was going to abandon her for another woman and stolen money. And she's been planning revenge for a man who didn't even love her, seducing his killer, falling in love with him, all based on a completely false narrative. When Gi-taek finds her an hour later, she's sitting on his bathroom floor, still wearing his shirt, tears streaming silently down her face. He kneels beside her immediately. What happened? Are you hurt? And something in Zola breaks completely. She can't keep living this lie, can't keep pretending, can't keep hiding who she is and why she's really here. So she tells him everything. My name is Zola Baptiste, she starts, and watches his face carefully. I was married to David Min for 4 years. He died in a car bombing 3 months ago. You remember him? I'm sure. Gi-taek's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. Go on. I thought you killed him because of some territorial dispute. I thought he was innocent, a good man caught in a bad world. So I planned revenge. She laughs bitterly. I researched you for 3 weeks. Found out about your Friday routine at Eclipse. Bought expensive dresses I couldn't afford. I walked into that lounge planning to seduce you, make you fall for me, make you vulnerable enough that I could destroy you. And now, he asks quietly. Now I just found out David was stealing from you. 8 million won, maybe more. And he was cheating on me, planning to run away with another woman and leave me with nothing. So my entire revenge plot was based on a lie. She meets his eyes. I fell in love with you to avenge a man who didn't even love me back. Gi-taek is silent for a long moment. Then he stands, offers his hand. Come with me. He leads her to his study, the locked room she's never been allowed to enter. Inside is a desk, filing cabinets, a safe built into the wall. He opens the safe with quick, efficient movements and pulls out a folder. Sit, he says, gesturing to a chair. She sits. He hands her the folder. Inside is everything. Bank records showing David's systematic theft over 24 months, transfer records to offshore accounts, detailed reports from Sang-woo documenting the skimming, the patterns, the amounts, photos of David with his mistress, some of the same ones Ulian sent, others Zola hasn't seen, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, an apartment lease. And at the bottom, a photocopy of plane tickets to Thailand, dated 3 days after David died. 2 tickets, David Min and Park Ji-young. He was leaving the country, Gi-taek says quietly. Leaving you, leaving the organization, taking 8.3 million won of my money. That's why I ordered his death, Zola. Not because of some petty dispute, because he betrayed me and he was going to disappear with what he stole. Did you know about me? She asks. When you killed him? No, I didn't even know he was married until after the bombing. When Minha did a final sweep of his life, found the marriage certificate, found you. By then it was done. Zola stares at evidence of her husband's complete betrayal and feels the last of her grief finally, blessedly, turn to ash. Gi-taek kneels in front of her chair. Now I need to tell you something. I knew who you were from the beginning. Her breath stops. What? The night you walked into Eclipse, I knew you were David Min's widow. Minha told me you'd been asking questions at the funeral, that you seemed suspicious. I was curious what you'd do, if you'd come for revenge, or just disappear. When you showed up in that blue dress, I knew exactly what you were planning. Then why? She can barely form words. Why did you let me get close? Because even that first night, beneath your performance, I saw something real. You were trying so hard to seduce me, but you were also genuinely yourself. Laughing at my jokes because they were actually funny. Getting excited about art. Being honest about not knowing wine. He touches her face gently. I wanted to see if you'd go through with destroying me. And I wanted to know if what I felt was real or just fascination with someone brave enough to try. You've known this whole time. I've known. Been waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me the truth. Zola should be angry, should feel manipulated. Instead, she feels something like relief. No more lies, she says. No more games. No more lies, he agrees. Just us, whatever that means. She looks at this man who killed her cheating husband, who let her seduce him knowing her plans, who somehow fell in love with her anyway. I love you, she says. That's real. Whatever my intentions were at the start, what I feel now is completely real. I know, he says. I love you too. They make love on the floor of his study, desperate and claiming, rewriting their beginning with honesty. He takes her hard against the desk first, her legs wrapped around his waist, then carries her to the couch, where he strips her slowly and worships every inch of her skin with his mouth until she's begging. When he finally pushes inside her again, it feels different, more intense, like they're both finally present without masks or lies. Afterward, wrapped in a blanket on his couch, he shows her one more thing, a small box from his safe. "I bought this 2 weeks ago," he says, opening it. Inside is a ring. Simple, elegant, a single diamond that catches the light. "I was going to wait, plan some romantic proposal, but after tonight, after everything, I don't want to wait anymore." He takes her hand. "Marry me, Zola. Not because of revenge or games or manipulation. Marry me because we chose each other through all the lies and found something real." She should say it's too fast, too crazy, too complicated. Instead, she says yes. They rebuild over the next 3 months on a foundation of complete honesty. No more secrets, no more hidden agendas. Gi-taek pulls her fully into his world, introduces her as his fiancée, values her opinion on business decisions. She meets his associates, learns the real scope of his empire, sees the violence and the power, and chooses to stay anyway. Minha slowly, grudgingly accepts her, even admits, "One night over wine, I was wrong about you. You're good for him." He smiles more, seems almost human sometimes. The sex gets even better without the weight of deception. Gi-taek is possessive and thorough, marks her as his in every way possible, and Zola discovers she loves his dominance. The way he takes control in the bedroom, the way he makes her beg and then gives her everything she needs. But not everyone is happy about their engagement. Some of David's old crew mutter about the boss's new woman being the dead man's widow. Whispers follow Zola through certain rooms. Sang-woo warns Gi-taek about potential problems, but Gi-taek dismisses them. "They wouldn't dare," he says. "She's mine. Everyone knows it." The wedding is planned for 6 weeks out. Private estate, 200 guests, maximum security. Zola designs every detail herself, transforms Gi-taek's property into something beautiful. 5 days before the ceremony, a package arrives at her design studio. No return address, no note. Inside is a burner phone. It rings before she can even process what it means. She answers, heart already knowing before her brain catches up. "Hello, wife," David's voice says, exactly as she remembers it. "Miss me?" The phone clatters from her hands to the desk. She picks it up with shaking fingers. "You're dead. I buried you." "You buried someone," David says, and she can hear the smile in his voice. "Wasn't me, though. Car bomb killed Ji-yeon, my girlfriend. She was in my car that night, wearing my jacket. In the explosion and fire, the body was burned badly enough that a few doctored dental records did the rest. I was already gone." Listen, if you're not subscribed yet, I need you to understand something. The next 10 minutes of this story are going to absolutely destroy you in the best way possible. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications, because if you miss what happens at this wedding, you will genuinely regret it. I'm not kidding. Subscribe. Now. "Why?" Zola asks, trying to keep her voice steady. "Why fake your death?" "Because Gi-taek found out about the money. I had 2 choices, die or disappear. So I chose option 3, make everyone think I was dead, wait for the perfect moment, come back, and take everything." "What perfect moment?" "This one," David says. "You marrying him. Perfect position, baby. You're going to help me kill him at the wedding, take everything he has, and then we disappear together. Like we always should have. We never planned that. And I'm not helping you do anything." "Really?" "Because I have evidence you've been planning to kill Gi-taek from the beginning. Your research files, still saved on your laptop, notes about his routines, his security, his weaknesses, screenshots of floor plans from his estate." He pauses. "Sure, you told him about the initial revenge plan, but does he know you've kept all that information? That you've been updating it, adding to it, mapping every detail of his life?" Zola's blood turns to ice because he's right. She has old files she forgot to delete. Research she kept meaning to purge, but never did. Out of context, they look damning. You're bluffing. Try me. Help me kill him at the wedding, or I send everything to Gi-taek with a nice explanation about how you've been playing him all along. How the confession was just another layer of manipulation. How you're still planning to destroy him, just waiting for the perfect moment. Think he'll believe you after that? I'll tell him about this call right now. And I'll send the files immediately. Then it's your word against evidence, baby. How do you think that plays out? Zola hangs up and immediately goes to Gi-taek. She finds him in a meeting with Sang-woo, but she doesn't care. David's alive, she says without preamble. Both men freeze. Gi-taek stands slowly. Explain. She tells them everything about the call, the threats, the evidence David claims to have. Gi-taek's face goes dangerously calm in the way that means he's absolutely furious. He's trying to use you against me, he says. Yes, he wants me to help him kill you at the wedding. Wants me to drug your champagne before the ceremony, let him and hired men into the estate through the back entrance during the chaos. Gi-taek looks at Sang-woo. Thoughts? We cancel the wedding, Sang-woo says immediately. Go to war. Find David Min and finish what we started. No, Zola says. If we cancel, he disappears again. We'll spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. She looks at Gi-taek. We let him think I'm cooperating. Let him come to the wedding. And we trap him there. That's too dangerous, Gi-taek starts. But Zola cuts him off. It's the only way to end this. I'll text him that I'll help. Get details of his plan, and we'll be ready. If anything happens to you, Gi-taek says, and his voice is raw in a way she's never heard. It won't, she promises. We do this together. They plan meticulously over the next 4 days. Zola texts David that she'll cooperate, plays the role of betrayed wife convinced to help him. He sends her a security code for the estate's service entrance, says he'll have 6 men with him, wants her to spike Gi-taek's champagne with a sedative 30 minutes before the ceremony. She shares everything with Gi-taek and Sang-woo. They prepare countermeasures, extra security disguised as catering staff and wedding personnel, cameras monitoring every entrance. Sang-woo and 20 trusted men positioned strategically throughout the estate. The champagne will be clean. The security code will work, but it'll trigger silent alarms. They'll let David and his men get inside, get confident, then spring the trap. Here's what I want to know, and be honest with yourself about this. If your dead spouse came back to life and demanded you betray someone you love, would you do it? Would you choose old loyalty or new love? Comment below, because this is the impossible choice, and there's no right answer. The night before the wedding, Minha comes to Zola's room where she's staying separately per tradition. I need you to understand something, Minha says without preamble. If this goes wrong tomorrow, if David kills my brother, I will kill you. I don't care if you were manipulated or threatened or innocent. You brought this into our family. You'll answer for it. Zola meets her eyes steadily. It won't go wrong. For your sake, I hope you're right. After Minna leaves, Zola sits alone with her wedding dress and tries not to think about all the ways tomorrow could end in blood and death. Gi-taek calls, wanting to come to her, but she makes him follow tradition. Tomorrow, she says, after we're married and David is really, truly dead, you can have me for the rest of our lives. I'm holding you to that, he says. Good. The wedding day dawns clear and beautiful. Zola goes through the motions of preparation, hair and makeup, and the dress that fits like a dream. She looks at herself in the mirror and barely recognizes the woman staring back. 3 months ago, she was planning revenge. Now, she's fighting to protect the man she loves from the husband she thought was dead. The ceremony is scheduled for 4 in the afternoon. By 3:45, 200 guests are seated in white chairs on Gi-taek's lawn. The weather is perfect. The flowers are stunning. Everything looks like a fairy tale. Zola walks down the aisle at 4 exactly, and Gi-taek looks at her like she's the only thing in the world. They meet at the altar, hands clasping, and for one moment, She forgets about David and danger, and just feels this. The officiant begins. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. They exchange vows. Gi-taek promises to protect her, choose her, love her for the rest of his life. Zola promises to stand beside him in darkness and light, whatever comes. The words feel sacred despite everything. The officiant moves to the ring exchange. If anyone objects to this union, speak now, or forever hold your peace. That's when David steps out from behind a decorative column, and he's not alone. 6 men with him, all armed, spreading out to flank the seated guests. I object, David says, and his smile is vicious. Sorry to crash the party, baby, but we need to talk. Chaos erupts instantly. Guests scream. 3 of David's men fire warning shots into the air. People dive under chairs, scramble for exits. Gi-taek moves to push Zola behind him, but she's already stepping forward. David, she says, voice steady despite her racing heart. You don't have to do this. Actually, I do, he says, gun aimed directly at Gi-taek. This man killed me, or tried to, stole my wife, took everything. Time to return the favor. Gi-taek's security is moving but carefully. Too many civilians in the crossfire. Sang-woo is positioned near the house, hand on his concealed weapon. Minha is in the second row of guests, slowly reaching into her purse. You never loved me, Zola says to David. You were stealing from the organization, cheating on me, planning to run with another woman. I saw the evidence. The apartment lease, the plane tickets, all of it. That was strategy, David insists. Cover to make Gi-taek think I was distracted. Everything I did was for us, to get us out of this life. Liar, Zola says. You loved yourself and money and power. You never loved me. I was just convenient. David's face twists. Fine. You want the truth? You were boring, Zola. Safe and predictable and boring. Ji-yeon was exciting. The theft was exciting. Planning my escape was exciting. You were just the wife I was stuck with. The words should hurt, but they feel like freedom. Thank you, she says, for finally being honest. Now that we've established I'm the villain, David says, let's finish this. He aims at Gi-taek. Say goodbye to your new husband, baby. Multiple things happen simultaneously. Sang-woo shoots one of David's men from his position near the house. Minha pulls a small pistol from her purse and shoots another. Julien, who arrived late and positioned himself in the back, takes out a third. Gi-taek draws his own weapon and fires at David. But David fires too. The bullet meant for Gi-taek's head hits his shoulder because he's already moving, already spinning to shield Zola with his body. He staggers, but stays upright, returns fire. David takes a hit to the chest, then another. He falls to his knees on the white carpet that was supposed to be their wedding aisle, blood spreading in a dark stain. The remaining 3 of David's men try to run, but Gi-taek's security has them surrounded. It's over in less than 2 minutes. Zola runs to Gi-taek. How bad? Just the shoulder, he grits out. I'm fine. You're bleeding. I've had worse. David is choking on blood, dying slowly on the ground. Zola walks over to him, looks down at the man she was married to for 4 years. You actually chose him, David gasps. Over me. I chose myself, she says, and he respects that. You never did. I loved you. No, Zola says quietly. You loved owning me. There's a difference. David dies there, finally, and truly dead this time, with his eyes open and shocked. The estate becomes controlled chaos. Guests are evacuated through secure routes. Gi-taek's people clean the scene with practiced efficiency. Police won't be called, because police don't get called for things like this. Bodies are removed. Blood is cleaned. By evening, the lawn looks pristine again, except for bullet holes in a few decorative columns. Gi-taek's shoulder is bandaged by a private doctor. The bullet went through. No major damage. He'll heal fine. Zola stands in her blood-spattered wedding dress and realizes she's shaking. We can postpone, Gi-taek says, coming to her with his good arm. Do this another day when it's not. He gestures vaguely. This. No, she says firmly. We finish it. Now. Today. I'm not letting him ruin this too. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. If you're still watching and you haven't subscribed, honestly, what are we even doing here? This story just gave you a wedding shootout, a dead husband returning, a literal altar of blood. Hit that subscribe button, leave a comment about which moment destroyed you the most, and get ready, because the ending is going to wreck you in the best way. Do it now. They clean up, change clothes. Gi-taek's shoulder is properly bandaged under a fresh shirt. Zola puts on a simple white dress. Nothing elaborate, just clean and beautiful. 2 hours after the shooting, with the sun setting over Seoul, they gather in Gi-taek's study, with just 7 witnesses. Minha, Sang-woo, Julien, and 4 trusted members of Gi-taek's inner circle. A judge who owes Gi-taek significant favors officiates. Do you, Nam Gi-taek, take this woman as your wife? I do. Do you, Zola Baptiste, take this man as your husband, in full knowledge of who he is and what he does, choosing him freely and completely? I do, she says, meaning it with everything she has. Then, by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. They kiss as married partners, sealing a union born from revenge and lies but built on something real and hard-won. Minha actually smiles. Welcome to the family. Officially this time, the small group shares champagne, the good stuff from Gi-taek's private collection. Julien pulls Zola aside. Are you happy? He asks quietly. Really happy? She looks at Gi-taek across the room, talking with Sang-woo, his wounded shoulder not slowing him down at all. Yes, she says. I really am. Good, Julien says. Because if he ever hurts you, I don't care how powerful he is. He won't, she promises. That night, alone finally in Gi-taek's, in their bedroom, they make love carefully because of his injury. He sits in a chair and she rides him slowly, intimately, her hands framing his face as they move together. When they come, it's together, her name and his tangling in the air between them. After, in bed with his good arm around her, he says, we did it. We survived, she agrees. More than survived. We won. 8 months later, Zola stands in their new home, a private estate outside Seoul that she designed from the ground up. She's 6 months pregnant, and the nursery she's been planning is finally coming together. Gi-taek comes in carrying paint samples, the yellow or the green. She looks at both, places his hand on her swollen belly where their daughter is currently doing acrobatics. What do you think, little one? The baby kicks hard against his palm, and his face lights up with wonder. She has opinions already. Like her mother. God help me, he says fondly. 2 of you. Zola laughs, kisses him, and it deepens the way it always does between them. Instant heat. But before it can go further, the baby kicks again, more insistently. She's saying, not now, Zola says. Bossy too, Gi-taek groans, definitely like her mother. They paint the nursery together that afternoon, working in comfortable silence. Gi-taek's shoulder healed perfectly. The organization runs smoothly. They're building legitimate businesses to slowly transition away from the violent parts of his empire. It's not perfect, it's not clean, but it's theirs. That evening, sitting on their terrace watching the sunset, Gi-taek asks, do you ever regret it? Any of it? Zola thinks about David, the revenge that became love, the violence and lies and complicated truth of their beginning. Every single day, she admits. But never this, never choosing you, never her. She places his hand on her belly again, and their daughter responds with a solid kick. She's going to be fierce, Gi-taek says softly. She'll have to be, Zola replies. Look at her parents. He pulls her close, careful of her pregnant body, and kisses her temple. I love you, both of you. We love you too, she says. No more revenge, he says. No more lies, she adds. Just family. Just us. The sun sets over Seoul, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, and Zola feels something she never thought she'd feel again after David died. Complete peace. The past is buried. The future is growing inside her, and the man beside her, dangerous and powerful and completely devoted, is hers in every way that matters. Sometimes the best love stories start with the worst intentions. Sometimes you have to burn down everything you thought you knew to find what's real. And sometimes, just sometimes, revenge transforms into something better. Like forgiveness, like truth, like love worth fighting for. Zola looks at her husband, the father of her child, the man who killed her first husband, and somehow became her whole world. She should regret how they began. She should feel guilty for loving him. But she doesn't, because in the end, she didn't just get revenge on Nam Gi-taek. She got everything. And that, she thinks as he pulls her closer and their daughter kicks between them, is better than any revenge could ever be. If this story grabbed you, if you felt every twist and turn, if you're sitting here emotionally destroyed in the best way possible, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story like this. Hit that notification bell. Drop a comment telling me what moment hit you hardest. Share this with someone who loves dark romance and complicated characters and love stories that start in the worst possible way. Because I've got more stories coming that will wreck you just like this one did. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is building something beautiful from the ashes. Until next time,